Well, the idea of the book of Chasing Ghosts is to look at policing and intelligence systems as they've been established since 9/11 in the United States. There's been a huge amount of effort been put into it, and try to evaluate how much good this effort has done and whether it's been basically effective enough to justify its cost. The place to start any kind of analysis is how big is the threat? In other words, how safe are we? Not are we safer? Obviously, you put on one security guard one place in the world, everybody is a teeny tiny bit safer. So it's easy to become more safe, but the question is basically, how safe are we? And a reasonable calculation is that an American's chance of being killed by a terrorist, including 9/11 in the calculation, is about 1 in 4 million or 1 in 5 million per year. So you should start from that and you say, if my chance of being killed by a terrorist is 1 in 4 or 5 million per year, how much money do I want to spend to make that threat even lower? When there are lots of other problems, such as your chance of being killed in an automobile accident is about 1 in 8,000 per year. Not 1 in 8 million, but 1 in 8,000. Your chance of being killed in a homicide is about 1 in 20,000. Let me put it another way. If you've got a hazard and you try to reduce the number of people who are killed by it, and it costs $1 billion to save one life from that hazard, is that a sensible policy when there are other hazards which kill more people, and when you can save a life at save $100,000 per saved life? That's the kind of calculation should be going into this. Spending $1 billion to save one life, when with that same expenditure you could save dozens or hundreds or thousands of lives dealing with a different hazard, is irresponsible. Under present circumstances, your chance of being the victim of terrorism on a single airplane flight is about 1 in 90 million. And the discussion should begin at that point. If the chances of being killed by a terrorist under present circumstances, including these porous, inspection measures, is 1 in 90 million, is that safe enough? Is that acceptable? Or do you really want to spend money to make it even lower? You definitely want to look at what the costs are, but also what the benefit is. And you can assess those. In the case, for example, of the New York Police Department, it has a "if you see something, say something" campaign, which costs a fair amount of money, mostly paid for by federal taxpayers, not by New York taxpayers. And the number of terrorism leads it's generated that have led to terrorism arrests is 0. If you deal with things like the federal air marshals on airplanes, they've been there a long time, and they have not affected a single terrorism arrest. If you look at the National Security Agency, which spends billions of dollars collecting huge amounts of data, the issue is not only how much does it cost to do that, and also to go through the data to try to find bad guys, but also to find out how much success it's had. And if you look at many of the programs, the amount of terrorism arrests that have been consummated because of these programs seems to be extremely limited. And so the question then arises as to why are we spending that much money with very little benefit? People are obviously very concerned about ISIS because of the beheadings, that somehow a group that is able to behead totally helpless hostages in their control is somehow a threat to the United States. They're obviously monsters and a horrible group, but the idea that they present a threat to anybody in the United States is very, very questionable.